Come get some. Beware,
IGN Game Scoop.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to IGN Game Scoop. I'm your host, Damon Hatfield. This is Greg Miller.
Me.
This is Casey Lynch.
What up?
It's Brian Altano.
Hi.
Brett.
Greg.
Yeah.
And Casey. A few weeks ago, you guys packed your overnight bags and you flew out to New York City
They make salsa there.
to see
They have hurricanes.
get a rope to see Grand Theft Auto 5.
Yeah.
Please tell us about it.
3 characters. First time in franchise history. Here's the thing that I'll tell you that I got, Damon. I'm on the plane. In the seat.
You were flying it? They let you fly it?
They gave me a plastic steering wheel for some reason. But I'm on the plane, and we talk about sequelitis, how I have that a lot, right? Where I know I'm going to be excited for this game, but I don't get like crazy excited for it, right? We talked about this with Assassin's
That's what
Creed.
sequelitis is?
Yeah, to me. We talked about it on Game Scoop here. At least, come on, can you just let the show roll? You just nod like we talked before. And it was one of the things on the plane I was like, oh, it's going to be cool to see GTA 5. I'm excited, it's GTA. I'm sure it'll be great. And it was one of those things, fine. And then when we got there and we watched it, what I liked the most about it and what spoke to me is that it wasn't just GTA 5 from GTA 4. It wasn't just another main
It wasn't
character.
GTA 4 2.
Exactly. It wasn't a character just running around doing his thing. It's these 3 different characters, but then it was the scope of the world and how different everything looked, right? When we talk about Liberty City, Brian and I have talked about it before, especially in GTA 4, right? It was it had this like hazy filter over it, and it was like, it all kind of felt the same. This giant open world, how similar can it feel? But in GTA 5, from what they showed Casey and I, like the scope of it is insane. From the fact that you were up in the Hollywood Hills and you ride down this beautiful, lush green everywhere.
Rockford
sunny.
Hills.
Yeah. Sorry. And then if we jump to the next character and we're in the mountains and in the desert and there's almost so much stuff, they kept talking about, you'll be able to go everywhere from the tops of mountains to the depths of the sea.
And they
kept saying
literally
this.
said that like
So
3 or 4
expect to
times,
hijack
so.
a submarine as well.
Yeah,
but
and scuba
that's crazy.
dive or
Yeah.
look for buried or something.
Discover the lost city of
And maybe
Atlanta or
Atlanta,
whatever they want to call it in that game.
Totally.
But yeah, for me,
Atlantis, Georgia.
what really spoke out about it was just the scope and how different things felt, but they all had the detail of it. Like when Michael is riding his bike out of his mansion down the street and just the way the pavement was rolling underneath him and there was all this green grass flying by him, to then when we jumped to Trevor and we're just in this like dirt bag, middle of nowhere town with all the sand. That was really, really
Yeah,
cool.
and then-
What was your first impression?
I mean, it was kind of the same thing. I don't think I necessarily maybe went into it quite as cynical, but
I was cynical about it. I knew I was going to like it, but I just wasn't man.
I had a pretty open mind. But I would say that the things that struck me were the look of it feels sort of fresh again, and then the sort of dynamic between being able to switch between the 3 different characters on the fly and seeing it work. It's one thing to sort of read about it, but seeing it actually work in a mission made it feel very fresh to me. So to the point that you made about the sort of the removal of that oily, hazy look, I think that makes a lot of sense because moving from the East Coast to the West Coast to sort of
The air is just totally clear in LA.
well, it's not that. I think what they're trying to do is just project a different vibe, and
That sunny beach feel.
yeah, and it's super bright. There's tons of really, really bright colors all over the place. It looks really good. Yeah, you were talking about when Michael takes off out of his garage on this bike. I mean, you could see the cracks in the street, like maybe where it had been repaved. There were oil stains. It looked really good.
Yeah.
So remember when we first saw screens for this game, we started kind of surmising that it took place in a very like post-recession era where you saw the city and it was torn down and the places out of business and stuff like that. But now it seems like certain characters are going to kind of have more of that than others. Like one guy lives in a really nice house, but the other guy lives in the projects.
Yeah, I mean that's the really interesting thing. Well, not the projects part, but the part for Trevor.
You're
right?
not interested in the projects?
No.
What are you saying?
Well, I don't think. I think you've got. It's not really the projects as much as living out in like a trailer park in the middle of nowhere in a desert, right? And this is one of the really interesting things when I was talking to Mr. Hauser about the game, is that he's talking about how it's 2 sides of the same coin with Michael and Trevor, right? These guys were best friends and they were coming up together in the criminal underworld. And Michael went the route of, the Nico or whoever who went into this thing and did all these criminal activities and ended up winning out, cashed out as a millionaire. And Trevor went and did all the negative stuff and ended up in the middle of nowhere. In this they both have lives they're not happy with, and now the game's bringing them together to kind of, see what's going on. And so when I asked about that too, because the first trailers made it seem like, oh yeah, it's going to be, all about about like the housing market falling out and what happens when the bubble bursts and stuff like that. And that's a backdrop for what they're talking about. I mean, they're just setting it in the current like financial setup or whatever, so you have an idea of what's happening. But it's more of these characters individual, from what they said, individual stories of how it all ties into that.
See, I like that because it's totally ripe for characters double-crossing each other.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
3 playable characters.
3 playable characters.
That seems like the biggest change to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is. I mean, it was weird when they first showed it, or even wrapping your head around it, right? When there's 3 characters, right? Michael, Trevor, and Franklin. Sorry, I almost lost it. And you don't know how that's gonna work, right? Especially because it's like, oh, so I get it. I'll be tagging in and out, right? I'll go be Franklin, and then Trevor and everybody else will just stop. But they're all in together, right? Like one of the most exciting things about the game is it's not just like, okay, you're trying to come up in the criminal underground. It's like, nope. The best part of GTA 4 was where you went and did the robbery. You went and did this bank robbery. So now there's going to be 5 or 6 heists in the game. That's the whole point of the thing, is you're going off and pulling these heists, and all the missions leading up to those are leading up to make it basically like an Ocean's 11, heist or whatever.
That sounds fantastic. That was mine and most people's favorite part of GTA.
Totally.
4. Like,
Yeah.
Just the scope of it, of like, we're planning this out. Here's the actual thing, and then there was the escape of like breaking down in the subways while helicopters were attacking the street and getting out of there, and then dying and having to restart.
That was one of the things they kept talking about when we were there, that particular mission left such an impression on people from GTA 4 that years afterwards they were all talking about that. So the other thing was, and one of the motives for trying to have these 3 characters that you'll be switching between is they're really, from what they said, they're really intent on keeping people doing the things that are the most fun. So if you're doing something, like if you're on a mission and all 3 characters are involved, but they're all doing separate things, and you're doing something with one of those guys and you're just not into it, you can swap out of it and now do what the other person is doing within that mission. So say, for instance, I guess, if one was running an errand to set something up, just switch out of that character into another character to do something separate. So we saw this mechanic actually working in action. With the first mission that they showed us. It was essentially, there was a guy that they needed to extract from their version of the FBI, which is the FIB, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
And they were literally flying a helicopter over the building to pull a guy out of a window. So there's 3 characters, Michael, Trevor, and Franklin. Trevor's flying the helicopter. Michael rappels out of the helicopter and down the face of the building, and then Franklin's a couple buildings over on the top of the roof. So you could play that any number of ways. You could just be the helicopter pilot, and Michael rappels down and then breaches through the window and does that thing, and you're just there in the helicopter ready to go. You could play as Franklin, who's covering Michael as he goes through the window, and Franklin has a sniper rifle with a scope, and right when Michael breaches the window, you can immediately see guys rush in, and you're just sitting there taking him out and providing cover for Michael, or you can play as Michael rappelling down. So it gives you a lot of choice to sort of figure out, how you want to do it.
How positive are you on that? I thought that was the part where they were forcing us to move. And then on the way out, when you were in the helicopter, when Trevor was flying the helicopter and Michael was on the gun, that was when, if you don't like flying, you can switch to the machine gun.
There were parts of it that I think that you did have to do.
In missions, I know for a fact they do at times force you out to different characters.
Right. I personally like I liked the rhythm and the flow of rappelling down the building and doing the whoa, like Rainbow Six, like through the window. You jump in, you grab the guy, and immediately the game prompts you to switch, and it's sort of like you go right into Franklin, who's maybe a football field away on top of the roof with a scope, and then you just start picking off guys. It felt like you were just moving through the mission very organically, and I don't know, it felt very different and unique.
Oh, sure. So. I mean, like that's the really cool part of the 3 characters, right? Is they talked about always being in the heart of the mission, but always having something cool to do. Like when people bitch about GTA, a lot of times they bitch about, oh well, I got this mission, and then I had to drive across town, or I had to run this dumb errand and go across town. Whereas the time, that's when they're gonna make, they say, the TV switch of like, all right, Michael's done. They've all done this giant thing, and now Michael's gonna go home and talk to his wife or whatever, and you don't care about that. So we're gonna click to Trevor, and we're gonna be Trevor. This is the next part of the story because he's doing something really interesting. And when he's done, then you're gonna switch to somebody else rather than get in your car and drive to Michael's house and find out what's happening.
Yeah, because that's actually what kills the flow of GTA for me. It's like no matter how big the city is or how cool the characters are, the vehicles or something like that, when you're prompted to do like this 12-minute point A to point B delivery chase scene or something like that, and then you fail and you have to restart it. Like, you break the fun of, it doesn't matter how big the world is or who's in there or anything like that. It's just like I'm picking up groceries for my wife. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. It's boring.
Yeah, it's one of those things.
So might as well get my friends.
What they're talking about, it sounds like they get that and they want to change that, which is super exciting to get in there and have a GTA that's paced like an Ocean's 11 movie, paced like 24 or something, where Chloe's doing something boring, so we skip away from her and go check out what's happening to Jack. That's interesting. I want that.
And they live in really different sort of areas and different, they have different lifestyles and they're in different places in their lives.
Yeah.
So you're going to, I think, hear sort of how they came to be where they are. Like Trevor is supposedly the psychopath and he's prone to violence. And, and Franklin lives in South Los Santos, so he's sort of like in the hood. They showed like there's dispensaries, so we saw him walk out of a marijuana store, so which was in Venice Beach, I think. Or
Yeah,
whatever
he was
it's
down on
called.
Muscle Beach.
Doing the job high.
Yeah, I know. So, but the other thing too that I think that we need to talk about is sort of the scope of the game, and how you're going to be navigating around. Like for instance, the map itself is supposedly the biggest map that they've ever built.
Yeah.
They said you could fit Red Dead, GTA 4,
And San Andreas.
and San Andreas
Yeah.
in the map.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Right. And the other big thing is the entire map is open from minute one. Like right when you start the game, you can go anywhere in the map, which is new for GTA.
Yeah, no bridges are closed or anything
Yeah.
like that. You don't have to wait for that kind of stuff.
And because all three of the characters are spread out geographically, the way that you can fast travel very quickly is just literally swapping characters. So you could be Michael in Rockford Hills, which is up, in the hills with this nice, palatial big house there, and then swap all the way out into the boonies with Trevor, who's in Blaine County or something like that.
And it does it like the Driver San Francisco way, which it sounds like a knock, but
I've
I'm
been
not.
thinking about Driver San Francisco this whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
Where
what
you're
it's like,
you're
yeah.
in the car and you go, and you
Yeah.
go up into the clouds and you see where the other person is and you beam down into them. And the cool thing about it is like you're not beaming into them and finding them in a T-pose or just like standing in their house waiting for something to happen. Supposedly they're going to be constantly doing things. They're living their life even if you're not those characters.
That was the question I had.
When we beamed into Trevor in the demo, it was a planned demo. They beamed into Trevor and he's on the shitter. He's there pooping. So like he gets
Or
up
trying
and
to push one
yeah,
out.
trying to push one out. You get off and you take off as him. But then at other times, like when missions end, they said, and you're in control of somebody and you walk away. If you were to let it go for a little bit and then pull out, you should be able to beam into the other people in their cars or walking away or doing whatever they were doing after the mission ended.
And we saw that demonstrated. Like when we went back to Michael, he was driving.
Yeah.
And you just don't know what they're going to be doing. The way they described it, it sounded like they have sort of these off-cycle routines, similar to like something in Oblivion or Skyrim, where it's sort of euphoric, I guess, where they're just doing their thing. And wherever you find them, that seems like part of the fun, too. Is
Right.
just, I wonder what so-and-so is going to be doing at whatever time it is.
He's pooping.
Oh,
might be.
still pooping. Interesting thing about it is they were talking about how Red Dead really what they learned from all their different games. In Red Dead, they took away how much people really dig dynamic events and things in the world happening. And they talked about how that's going to be a big part of the game. Where the example we saw was we were driving to a mission or just driving around the city and passed a cash truck, the security firm that would go take cash or whatever. Like, oh, right here, if you wanted to, you could try to take this. You could rob them right now. You could pull over, try to jack the car in front of them. You could follow them back to where they drop off the money at the bank. You could do all these different things to try to get the money from them.
What is motivating these three characters? And what do you know about the overall story so far?
So Michael...
I was going to say money.
Yeah, well, it is money, and we'll get to money in a second and sort of the role that it plays. But Michael and Trevor, like Greg mentioned, used to roll together back in the day. Michael's kind of this established. I think of him almost like the character at the end, like CJ at the end of San Andreas. You've got your mansion on the hill, right?
Yep.
And you're sort of made. And so he's done all of that, but he kind of got out of the game. Like he's in some kind of strange witness protection program. I think his wife has spent or has almost spent most of his money. So he's looking to try, and he's older, his kids are older, he's unhappy. I think he imagined that life as a made guy who's out and free to sort of just be a civilian, that life would be good. But the impression that we got was that he's unfulfilled and he's motivated by needing more money. So he's hooked back up with Trevor. And I believe that this is the first time that they've worked together as the three guys, bringing Franklin in as well. But I think ultimately, the simple answer is I think they're all motivated by money.
And that's the interesting thing, because Rockstar was very clear when we were getting the demo that that money is a tool this time around, and they weren't prepared to really go into what exactly that meant detail-wise. But they were making it, saying that it isn't just you're going to get all this money and then go buy a rocket launcher like we have in past GTAs. Like there's
or a new
something
suit.
to this. Yeah, exactly. There's something to this as far as what you're working for and what that money's, where that's going with it. So that's interesting.
And thinking about the model of the game, so the mission that we saw was very sort of okay, this is our goal. We're going to go do this, and this, and with a very thought out goal to get this guy out of this building, and it seems like there's going to be sort of a string of missions like that leading up to bigger events that are then leading into these big planned heists.
And that's what's awesome, right? Like we keep talking about scope, and like we were rappelling down a building, breaking through the glass,
And that was the
shooting
first
guys,
mission.
pulling back. Yeah, and this wasn't a heist. Like it was a heist of a human being, and we got to see the police or the FIB roughing this guy up and trying to break his hand and threatening to sodomize him with a flashlight. But it was one of those things like this whole thing wasn't the big heist. Like the heists are going to be crazy.
Yeah. So this event that we saw wasn't, it was not one of those, and it was, but on the scale of life, like rappelling and breaching and breaking into an FBI or FIB building, I mean, it's pretty crazy. So. But because heists are all about money or spoils or whatever it is, I think money is going to be playing heavily into it. Another interesting note is not all, as far as we know, not all three characters are going to share a money pool. So you, as the player, you're not going to be racking up one joint fund. When you go between Trevor or Michael or Franklin, each one of them will have their own sort of bankroll, I guess, which could play into the idea of one turning on the other, because who knows if you pull off a heist and Michael ends up with a giant sum and maybe Trevor doesn't. Or
That's really cool. Yeah, they could even throw in an aspect of trying to keep the kind of system balance between all the characters, otherwise they start screwing each other over. But I mean, I wonder, did they mention anything about using money as a sort of way to take over areas or anything like that? Because I know that like a lot of sandbox games, like Saints Row has done it, The Godfather did it. I think they even did it with Chinatown Wars. Yeah, like kind of dominating neighborhoods and kind of.
That wasn't really the thing.
No, I didn't.
But I think that's also it pushing away from doing this heist thing, right?
Yeah.
Like why would I be trying? Like the other GTAs it made sense. You were trying to become this kingpin, and this one it seems like you're just trying to make ends meet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to get to this goal.
You're just trying to get money by the day. It's not even like I'm trying to become this drug lord or something.
Yeah.
Did you guys just see the one mission?
Yeah.
We saw
they ran around and did stuff, but the one mission
and
we saw.
character introductions. We saw Michael in his house. We saw his daughter doing some sort of dance game, and it looked like there was a Connect. And so I asked, is there going to be like a Connect dancing mini game? And they didn't answer. So
it turned out to be a PlayStation Eye.
Right, a very large PlayStation Eye.
It was doing the SD
They
image.
found the one household.
But then you have all the money in the world.
when we went to Trevor, it was interesting. So Trevor gets up out of his was he in a trailer?
Yeah.
Yeah, his non-double wide, whatever it is. And he trucks on over to a gas station and randomly pours gasoline all over a giant truck and lights it on fire, because that's what Trevor does.
Yeah.
This reminds me of Kill Bill and Michael Madsen. He's in the show. Kill Bill's in the mansion.
Yeah, it was very, the place where Trevor lives is very swordfish, out in the middle of nowhere. It looked very, there was a lot of undeveloped land that looked very rusted and copperish. So there was a lake there too.
I think there was a coyote wandering around, wasn't there too?
Well, because I mean, from the screens we've seen the bustling city, but we've also seen here's the middle of the desert, and here's the where you can go parasailing and hang gliding and all this shit.
Yes, it was like that. That's where he lives, out in the boonies, the Antelope Valley of Los Santos.
It sounds awesome.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah,
Sounds
I really it's one of those things. Everything they said sounds awesome. I really hope it all pays off. But from what we saw, I mean, totally on. They didn't talk about multiplayer, but it was that they have a new take on multiplayer is what they said. But that's what they left it at.
And we know that they've solicited input from the community, hey, we're putting together multiplayer. What would you like to see in it? We do know that there's going to be crews carried over from Max Payne 3, so...
we reported on that a long time ago.
We did. Well, Max Payne came out in May.
That's right.
So we know that there'll be that dynamic where you will have sort of an in-game party system that's persistent, that you'll be able to play with. Whether that translates into some sort of multiplayer heist system, who knows? That could be interesting.
Cool.
So instead of maybe... cops and robbers sort of modes or some kind of deathmatch, maybe what it'll be is more akin to Halo Spartan Ops or something.
That'd
where
be awesome, actually.
There's episodic content, even, who knows,
Yeah.
where you're actually working on bigger objectives as opposed to PvP kind of stuff. But we don't know.
We've talked about this on GameScoop before. I love the multiplayer in Grand Theft Auto 4. I think it's underappreciated for this generation's multiplayer games.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, that came out, in 2008? And people are still playing GTA 4 multiplayer. Even more so than Red Dead, which came out afterwards. So, but the fact that people are still playing both of those games and they don't have Halo or Call of Duty in the title is sort of a testament to their staying power. So,
Grand Theft Auto 5 is coming out in the spring.
That's correct.
Yeah, 2013.
No release date yet, but it should just be about 6 months away, maybe less.
Yeah, PS3, 360. No word on PC.
Yeah, not this time.
What about the Wii U, you guys? No?
No, it's not going to be Wii U. No.
No. Period.
The Wii U.
There'll be an armored edition in 2 years.
Today is Monday, but we have lots more GTA 5 content coming out the rest of this week. Isn't that right, Casey and Greg?
Yeah, we do. We've got stuff hitting.
Yeah, that's my key. I forgot that I had the,
the
thing
list
here.
of everything.
I was like, we do, Damon. I can't wait to hear
We have
what
a
it all
veritable GTA 5 week.
Yeah,
right?
so
Yeah.
the
A
biggest
full-blown GTA
yeah,
5.
the biggest thing that's happening this week before we go through everything is on Wednesday. Rockstar's going to be revealing their second trailer. So we've already seen the first trailer, and we have a bunch of screens, many of which are new that are live right now on IGN. But at 8 a.m. Pacific, we will reveal trailer number 2 live here on IGN. We'll show it live, and then we will literally rewind through the whole thing and sort of break it down. And then we'll actually be taking questions on Twitter from people that are just wondering, like, what the heck did that mean, or whatever it is. And we'll be doing that for a couple hours afterwards. So that's this Wednesday on the 14th, I believe.
Still finalizing the time on that.
No, the time actually we just finalized.
Oh, okay.
It's at 8 a.m. Is when the trailer will drop. So we'll probably start about an hour before that, like at 7 a.m.
8 a.m. Pacific.
Pacific, correct.
7 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah, we'll start at 7 a.m. Pacific with some donuts and coffee, and,
Yeah, buddy.
and we'll run through
gonna
the
get a
first
bagel.
trailer. Yeah, exactly. But then the trailer reveal will happen at 8 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday, November 14th,
Okay.
and then we'll be sticking around for a couple hours afterwards, doing a rewind on it live, breaking it down, answering questions on Twitter and whatnot.
Cool.
And then other content for the rest of the week.
Right now, on Monday, there's the top 5 things you need to know about GTA 5. Clever. Top V.
Pretty good.
Right.
GTA
Pretty good.
V.
Top V.
We're going to record a game scoop and post that. Screenshot
that?
gallery.
Oh, it's
Casey's
meta.
running down the first mission.
Actually,
and
Alex is writing that, but yeah.
Alex is running down the first mission. God damn you.
We were changing.
Tuesday is the character breakdown. What's interesting is not only is it in-depth reporting from you, me, and Alex
Yep.
about it, but also Dan Hauser gives his rundown on what is going on with Michael, Trevor, and Franklin.
Very cool.
Yeah, when we were at Rockstar, Greg sat down with him for almost about 2 hours and did a giant interview. So,
Yeah,
that
goes live on Friday.
Yep. And so we have impressions about each one of the characters, but we got Dan to describe them too. So.
We go through all the rumors on Tuesday. All the rumors you've heard about GTA 5. We break
We
those
debunk
down.
them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damon's putting together a slow jam
or
screenshot video. Looking forward to
We
that.
need
one.
those screens.
Yeah, we'll get the screens eventually.
They'll be here by today, Monday.
Yeah. Thursday, Alex does a rundown of Los Santos, and then Friday, the Dan Hauser interview.
Also, we
stuff.
have a very exclusive interview with the head of
Very exclusive.
Yes, with the head of Rockstar North. Leslie never does interviews, and so
That's Tuesday.
We will have that interview on Tuesday. So just to have more insight on the actual creation of the game. So.
Nice. That all sounds good. Grand Theft Auto 5 looks really good. Stay tuned for lots more GTA 5 coverage this week on IGN.